With the world submerged underwater, one girl holds the key to finding the last dry land. After the polar ice caps have melted, the world gets submerged in water, forcing the survivors to adapt. A man known as the Mariner journeys across the sea. Due to the scarce resources, he recycles his own urine as drinking water, and makes a living out of scavenging old artifacts. While on his usual dive, a drifter boards his boat and steals the fruits from his lime tree. The Mariner resurfaces and sees the drifter attempting to escape, so he rushes to his harpoon to threaten him. The Mariner recognizes the man's boat but hasn't seen him before, so the drifter explains that he took the boat when the previous owner died. He also claims that he didn't board the Mariner's boat before, sharing the location of a nearby atoll, where he can resupply some necessities. Suddenly, they spot jet skis in the distance, driven by notorious pirates known as smokers. The Mariner gazes over his floating bag of artifacts, but the drifter advises him to leave it and escape. Before speeding off, the drifter teases the Mariner with his stolen limes. The Mariner quickly gets up and unleashes the full capacity of his boat. He sails toward the artifacts while the smokers race him to it. However, the Mariner is swift, quickly retrieving his artifacts and destroying the drifter's boat, thus leaving him to the smokers. For days, the Mariner sails to the atoll, but once he arrives, he's refused entry. However, he presents a jar of dirt, a precious commodity to any surviving community. The guards immediately let him in. Inside, he realizes that the place is poverty-stricken while an elderly woman's dead body is tossed in mud. As the Mariner ties his boat to the dock, the atoll's enforcer warns him not to cause any trouble. Later, he meets with a banker, who offers him 62 chits for the dirt. However, the Mariner demands twice the price and the banker relents. In a nearby bar, Nord gets a lead about a girl who has a map to the dry land on her back. After getting this information, Nord gives his extra water to the man. The Mariner heads into the bar for a glass of fresh water. Helen, the bar owner, quickly recognizes him as the guy with the jar of dirt. Nord approaches the Mariner and asks him to buy him a drink since he has just received a lot of money. When the Mariner rejects him, Helen feels the tension between them. Suddenly, Nord spots a girl, Enola, under Helen's care. Helen quickly tells her to go back inside, but not before Nord catches a glimpse of her tattoo. After this, Nord keeps talking to the Mariner, but he gets dismissed, so he leaves. Afterward, the Mariner buys everything from Helen's store, including a tomato plant. As she helps him carry them to his boat, she wonders if he'd seen the end of the water during his voyage. However, the Mariner insists that death is the only end there is. When they reach the docks, a group of people offers him anything he wants if he impregnates their tribute, since inbreeding has caused undesirable results in their colony. The Mariner rejects, so the elders accuse him of being a smoker spy, unconvinced that a man would turn down such an offer. As they arrest him, they discover the Mariner's secret. He's a mutant with gills behind his ear. This causes an uproar, so the Mariner fights his way out but gets thrown into the water. He kills his attacker underwater but gets caught in a net. Just as he's about to be choked to death, the enforcer butts in and reminds the people that they pay him to keep the peace, so he declares another way to deal with the mutant. That night, the Mariner is caged above the docks. During this, he sees Nord and his men loot his boat and secretly leave the atoll. Meanwhile, Helen asks the inventor, Gregor, when they can leave. Gregor says they don't know where to go yet since they haven't figured out what Enola's tattoo means. As they talk, Enola suggests asking the Mariner if he knows anything. Gregor tries his luck and approaches the Mariner. He chuckles upon seeing his bodily features, which include his webbed toes. When Gregor asks about the rest of his kind, the Mariner insists that there's no one else of his kind. Getting to the point, Gregor then asks about dry land, and the Mariner promises an answer if he sets him free. However, the enforcer sees Gregor. Scared, the inventor notes that he's not brave, so he begs for answers, which the Mariner refuses. The following day, the council decides to recycle the Mariner by drowning him in the mud pit. As his cage lowers, a lookout spots a horde of smokers approaching. The Mariner's execution gets halted and everyone goes to defend their territory. The Deacon leads the smokers and signals them to shoot down the atoll's walls. He then releases smokers to ride up on ramps and leap over the walls to enter. One smoker lands on the Mariner's cage, causing it to crash into the mud pit. The Mariner grabs the smoker's dagger and tries to pick the lock. Meanwhile, Gregor accidentally activates his hot air balloon, so he signals Helen and Enola to escape with him. However, he's unable to slow the machine down, so Gregor drifts away, leaving the two behind. Just then, Helen and Enola spot the mariner in his cage, so Helen breaks the lock in exchange for taking them with him. The mariner retrieves his boat while Helen and Enola open the gates. As he drifts closer to the gates, he spots Nord and throws a spear near his face. This infuriates Nord, so he orders smokers to kill him. Enola and Helen open the gates, but an explosion causes them to fall, though they manage to hang on the side. The boat reaches the gate but gets stuck in between, so Enola climbs up and helps the mariner open the gates further. After this, they get on board to escape. However, the deacon spots them and orders his shooter, Chuck, to kill them. As Chuck rains bullets at them, the mariner shoots a harpoon at his boat and steers it to face the deacon. This leads to Chuck shooting at the deacon's boat until it explodes. With this, the trio escapes. The deacon survives, but he has lost an eye. Together with his spy, Nord, they search for Enola within the wrecked atoll. Upon learning that the girl escaped with the mariner, the deacon alerts his men about their new mission while showing his hollow eye. In the mariner's boat, Helen asks if he knows where dry land is. He says he does, but he'll only take her if they get rid of Enola since she'll only consume resources. Desperate to keep the child, Helen offers herself to him. He gets tempted, but seeing her conflicted, he refuses. Instead, the mariner stresses that he can just drop them both as he doesn't need them. Out of options, Helen aims a harpoon gun at him, threatening him into taking them both. However, the mariner drops the sails on her and knocks her out with an oar. After this, he climbs to the top of his sail where it's peaceful. Elsewhere, the deacon and the smokers return to a rusted tanker, which serves as their home base. There, the deacon fashions himself a new eye, and his audience compliments him. However, a boy says that it looks horrible. The deacon gives up and goes to check on the pits. As he makes his way there, he gives out cigarettes like a millionaire. When the deacon reaches the oil tanks, the meter reader informs him that they're running out of fuel. Because of this, he decides to stop all operations and focus on finding Enola, as he believes the dry land is the mother lode. Meanwhile, Helen helps around the mariner's boat to convince him into keeping them around. However, the mariner discovers that Enola had found his crayons and has been drawing on his boat. He scolds her for this, but Helen defends that Enola is just a child. Still, he tells her to teach the girl some rules if they want to stay. Soon, the mariner gets annoyed by Enola's blabbing, so he tosses her into the water without knowing that she can't swim. Helen slaps him and immediately dives in to save the girl. For a second, she fears that he'll leave them to die, but the mariner turns the boat around to retrieve them. Suddenly, a plane approaches, piloted by two smokers. They immediately shoot the mariner's boat, but they're careful not to hit Enola. The mariner goes below deck to prepare his weapons, but Helen impatiently fires a harpoon at the shooter. However, the harpoon is attached to a rope, so as the plane flies, it winds around the boat's main mast. This tethers the boat, so the mariner quickly climbs the sails to cut the rope while avoiding the pilot's bullets. Finally, the pilot's bullets cuts the rope, and the impact sends the mariner flying into the water while the pilot escapes. Helen's impulsive actions damage the mariner's boat, so he cuts her and Enola's hair as punishment. Meanwhile, the pilot informs the deacon about the mariner's last location. The deacon figures that the mariner won't change course since it's the obvious thing to do, so they set course to where he's probably heading. Elsewhere, a drifter approaches the mariner's boat. The mariner invites him aboard and they discuss their trade. The drifter asks for Enola and Helen, but the mariner says they're not for sale. The drifter then reveals that he has another rare commodity, paper. He offers this to the mariner in exchange for half an hour with Helen. Despite her protest, the mariner agrees, so Helen goes under the deck with the man. Before the drifter can even touch her, the mariner reconsiders the deal. This angers the drifter, so he prepares to attack. Helen leaves the men, and a few moments after, the drifter emerges from the deck. Helen aims a harpoon gun at him, but the drifter suddenly falls dead. The mariner then emerges and gathers supplies from the drifter's boat before dumping his body into the sea. He notices that Helen made a fishing rod to catch food, but he throws it away and shows them how it's done. He takes a harpoon gun and links it to a pulley, allowing him to drag himself after the boat. Suddenly, a huge sea creature swallows him whole, but he shoots it from the inside with the harpoon gun. The creature is then served as dinner for the trio. As they eat, Enola notices the mariner's webbed feet and expresses how she wants them so she can learn how to swim. That evening, as Helen returns a crayon that Enola took, the mariner comments that she doesn't look like the girl. She clarifies that she isn't her mother, though she acts like one. The mariner then hands her back the crayon, though he insists that it's just a loan. The next morning, the mariner teaches Enola how to swim, and this forms a bond between them, impressing Helen. Days later, they reach a barter outpost, so the mariner tries to communicate with the residents but gets no response. He immediately speculates that it's a trap. True enough, the Deacon killed the residents to use them as puppets. Smokers are positioned underwater for an ambush, but the mariner sees them through his periscope. He immediately turns the boat around, so the smokers ambush them with a net. However, the mariner simply tilts his boat, forcing the net to release. As they sail away, the Deacon shoots the mariner, wounding him. Later, the mariner realizes that the smokers are after Enola, so he demands to know what her tattoo means. Helen says it's a map to dry land, but the mariner thinks it's a myth and admits that he's never been there. She knows it exists because of the dirt that came from Enola's basket when they found her. Helen questions the rare items in his boat, assuming he gathered them from dry land. Because of this, the mariner decides to show Helen where his so-called dry land is. He sets up his diving bell and takes Helen underwater in it while Enola stays on the boat. At the bottom of the sea lies a sunken city where the mariner gets the dirt that he sells. Soon they resurface, and Helen immediately reflects on how she was wrong about the dry land. Suddenly, a horde of smokers surrounds the boat, and the Deacon and Nord appear, demanding to know where Enola is. Meanwhile, Enola hides, but when the Deacon threatens to kill the mariner and Helen, she surrenders herself. The Deacon abducts Enola while the mariner and Helen jump overboard to avoid being killed. While underwater, the mariner transfers air to Helen by kissing her. Meanwhile, the smokers burn his boat and return to the tanker. When the mariner and Helen resurface, Enola's gone and the boat is in ruins. Thinking they'll die anyway, Helen suggests making love, and when she kisses him, he reciprocates. Shortly after, the mariner looks for things he can salvage. While doing so, he finds Enola's drawing of a palm tree. It looks similar to a photo from the cover of a National Geographic magazine. With this, the mariner realizes that dry land might actually exist. When he goes back up, Helen wakes up and expresses how much she misses Enola. Suddenly, someone calls her name, and they find Gregor hovering above them as he can finally control his hot air balloon. After seeing the smoke from the boat, he could locate them. Gregor takes them to a small group of survivors from the atoll. Everyone is adamant about moving because of the smokers, so they refuse to help retrieve Enola. During this, Gregor checks the papers the mariner took from the drifter. Comparing the words on the paper to the ones in Enola's tattoo, he figures that they're numbers written backward. Having been mapping the cities below water, the mariner suggests the world is upside down as the poles have been reversed. He recounts how he saw Enola's drawing, thinking that it was proof that the girl had been to dry land. Gregor believes this is why he's preparing to find the girl, but the mariner stresses that he doesn't care about dry land. With that, the mariner leaves on a jet ski to rescue her himself, and Helen pleads with Gregor to help. Soon, the mariner arrives at the tanker and climbs its walls. There, he sees the smokers gathering for the Deacon's special announcement. Suddenly, two smokers discover his jet ski, so he lunges from above and drowns them. The others soon find the bodies and realize they've been infiltrated. As the Deacon excites the crowd, Enola glorifies the mariner's skills to scare Nord. She claims that the mariner doesn't have a name, so Death couldn't find him. Nord becomes furious, and he throws a dagger next to her to silence her. Meanwhile, the Deacon tells the crowd that dryland is not a mere destination, but their destiny. With this, he presents Enola and her tattoo. Everyone gets fired up and prepares to find dryland. However, since they're low on fuel, they release giant oars to paddle manually. At the deck, one of the Deacon's trusted men asks which direction to take. The Deacon hasn't figured out the map yet, so he tells him to wing it until the men realize that he was just bluffing. Suddenly, the mariner appears below them and calmly asks for Enola. The Deacon and his men only laugh at his request, so he reveals a torch and threatens to drop it in the oil pit, thus causing the tanker to explode. The Deacon stutters and asks if Enola is even worth dying for. The mariner says she's his friend, so he'll take the risk to ensure her safety. However, the Deacon is still unconvinced that he'll do it, so the mariner releases the torch. The whole tanker is set ablaze, killing most of the Deacon's men. Amidst this chaos, the mariner fights the smokers. When he gets to the balcony, Nord attempts to shoot him but runs out of bullets, so the mariner kills him. Meanwhile, the Deacon takes Enola on his plane to escape. so the mariner shoots a harpoon gun and uses the cable to rappel down. He then attaches an anchor to the aircraft, causing it to crash. He immediately runs to get Enola, and they finally reunite. Above them, Helen, Gregor, and the Atoll enforcer hover on the hot air balloon. They toss a rope to them, but the deacon appears and grabs the rope too. Seeing this, Helen throws a jar on his face and Enola kicks him into the water. With everyone aboard, the deacon shoots the balloon, causing Enola to fall. Then he uses a jet ski to retrieve her, with 2 of his men joining him. However, the mariner creates a makeshift bungee cord and grabs Enola. This causes the deacon to collide with his men. When the mariner and Enola get back up, Gregor informs everyone that he finally figured out the way to dry land. The next morning, the mariner sees a seagull resting on the balloon. Soon enough, they reach dry land, which is abundant with resources. Shortly after, they see a shack with 2 skeletons on the bed. On the table are drawings similar to the tattoo on Enola's back. Gregor says that they must have known they were dying, so they sent the girl in a basket to float at sea. Enola enters and opens a music box. Recognizing the melody, she softly says that she's home. While everyone is delighted to be in paradise, the mariner is overwhelmed by the new environment. He feels at home in the ocean, so he takes the boat of Enola's parents and resupplies. Knowing that he's leaving, Enola is heartbroken but understands. She then hands him the music box and kisses him on the cheek before running away. Before leaving, the mariner gives Helen a gentle kiss. Shortly after, he sets sail, so Helen and Enola climb the mountain's peak to watch him sail away to his new adventure.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.